Then today we are going to discuss about the topic Machiavelli. Machiavelli belongs to the period of 1500. He is regarded as father of political realism, the child of Renaissance, Renaissance rebirth of the reason. Okay, he is a child of Renaissance. He is the father of European secularism. Machiavelli, the first person who talked about this secularism. The completely religion is separated from the politics. He belongs to Italy. The critique of the Machiavelli is Sabine belongs to Italy. Machiavelli has concern about the greatest patriot. Nation states were being formed except for Italy. Around Italy there are nation states, but in Italy there is the rule of Pope. There is in the church. There is much more interference of the religion in the politics. It becomes corrupted. It's because vulnerable to the external attacks. Extremely critical of religion. Machiavelli is extremely critical of religion in politics. The church characters acting as obstacle to the unification of Italy. The corrupt churches makes corrupt Italian society. This the advocate he advocated for a separate religion and politics. Due to this separation of religion and politics, he is regarded as father of European secularism. Machiavelli has written a book called Prince. Any enterprising person who wants to come or who aspires to come in the power, it, the book Prince helps him to achieve. He belongs to the realistic school of thought. But his politics is not ethics. Politics is struggle of power. A prince should not only aspire power, a prince has to be manage the power. Psychology and history to guide politics. These are both not a philosophy who guide the politics according to the Machiavelli. The Machiavelli influences his politics at the time of his politics. Okay. Did him as the prince. What is the prince? The book Prince gives a man of statecraft. Our Kautilya has also given the statecraft regarding the Chandragupta Maurya period. Now, the Machiavellian is given the prince the state of and manual statecraft, advice to political entrepreneur, inspired by Casari Borgia. He addressed the Lorenzo the Magnificent. What is the first advice? The first advice is nature of profession. Is regarding the profession, he has given the first advice. The small for all advice. Sorry, same for all advisors. The Prince is considered the best book in the field of statecraft. It contains advices for an enterprising person who wants to become in power and remain in power. Machiavelli suggested Prince should understand the nature of profession rather than what should be, as it is rather than it should be. According to Plato, the prince, the philosopher king has to be understand what ought to be. But according to Machiavelli, the prince has to understand as it is rather than what it should be. The sophist, what the sophist says, the prince should teach what should be. The Machiavelli is different than even the sophist view. Sophist of what should be, Plato's of what ought to be, but the Machiavelli is as it is. He is more realistic in nature. The prince should not be a philosopher. According to the Machiavelli, prince should not be a philosopher. According to the Plato, prince ruler has to learn philosophy or philosopher should become a ruler. According to Plato, But what is according to Machiavelli? The prince should not be a philosopher. He should be realistic. He should belong to real worlds rather than world of ideas. The Aristotle also said that the prince belongs to the wise in the real world rather than world of ideas. Okay. If prince will sacrifice what is for what should be, he harms himself and his state. According to the Plato, prince has to sacrifice himself for the sake of best. According to Aristotle, prince should not sacrifice himself for the sake of best. Should not sacrifice good for the sake of best because it is impractical. According to Machiavelli, prince should, if he believes, if prince sacrifice it for what should be, he make himself half and even the state will become half. It will be vulnerable to harm. How we live is far removed from how we want to live. It's both are different things. It's a world of idealism, how ought to be. It's a realism, how should how we are living. They both are both they have both different way. The much more distinction between these two. Now, the politics is not goodness. According to Plato, politics should be goodness. It comes. He has its ideal state. He has given this. The politics should be ideal. It should come from a reason, man of the reason. Man of the reason will be who's enlightenment of the soul. Okay, not aspiring. Politics and ethics of both are same. According to the view of Plato and the view of Aristotle, even Socrates has stated, they they argue that they support the view of politics and ethics. But Machiavellian, he didn't supported the ethics in the politics. The politics is not for goodness, it's not inspiring, it's not even the ethics. It should be able to see the dark side of the picture, how to be bad, may need to may take morally wrong decision because the ethics of a prince is different from the ordinary person. This view is criticized by Sabine that Machiavelli is narrowly dated and narrowly placed with his pessimistic views with respect to politics because he belonged to Italy of the time. He had belonged to some other time. This way, he may not be so pessimist. The evolution of the Machiavellian theory is belongs to his times. By situations, he is given this theory. If he belongs to some other period, he won't be in a so pessimistic our view, though ideas heavily influenced by circumstances prevailing in Italy, but the thoughts have universal relevance. It may be influenced the Machiavellian to the prevailing situations in Italy at the time, but his thought has universal relevance. The irony that everyone follows Machiavellian, but no one acknowledges him as a Machiavellian. In international politics, we were much more in a view that we are much more behave like a Machiavellian. In even a politician behave like a Machiavellian, but he never acknowledged himself as a Machiavellian. This is the view on the nature of profession. Now, another advice is nature of human nature. Advice on human nature. According to Machiavelli, a prince knowledge of psychology backed by history will have psychological knowledge. Not just the people belongs to regions, particular regions. He should have the sense of the region, so the culture activities and the history of the period, history of the region. He should know it, which shows the human nature has not changed. Attributes and forget the favors. Support not to be taken for granted. Support has to be continuous. Favor should be done gradually. It's better to be feared rather than loved. A person should better to be feared of prince rather than beloved. Deceitful, he can betray the prince when interest demands. Human nature. Human nature is to aspire the power. There are cowards, fearful of losing all things that give him happiness. Convince people that interests are secure only when he is in power. Now, for example, during the elections, the Pakistan is showing the India, even the military is showing the India as a threat to them to be him in power. This makes them the continuously to dominate in the military domination in the Pakistan. So politics. Not only this example, even whenever in our country also, Modi just shows himself as if someone comes, there is a threat. If he will only serve the interest of the people by securing. There are fickle-minded people. Man can easily change his sides. तो पैसे देने इलेक्शन के सामने पैसे देते हैं. For the money, there are changes. The votes are shuffled. There are fickle-minded people. So there are human nature is ungrateful. They forgot the favors. Their support is not everything granted. So decide who people they are. They're betrayed, they're cowards, they're fickle-minded people. Avaricious, the person is greedy, possessive, and materialistic, all meant to maximize his material gain. The view of man is to maximize their material gains. It is better to execute than confiscate, according to the Machiavelli, because a man will be able to forgot his death of a father, but not his. But a man cannot forget his patrimony, his property, his patrimony, his inheritance property. He may be excuses even the death, but he won't excuse the property. The Machiavelli suggestion that should not touch others because man is possessive about the man. There are two fundamental qualities, which is one is selfish and another is material, which is a natural fact. You can't avoid it, it's a natural fact. There is a psychological or bourgeois class. For this, the savant criticized Machiavelli for the advice on the human nature. You have given the view is deductive, it's not a balanced view. It's an even not scientifically selfish but has a sympathy for food selfish okay but has sympathy to others too. This view heavily influenced by Italy, optimism from history. This is historicism. Machiavelli describes human nature as self-centered, materialistic, possessive. Psychology of emerging consciousness. He is described human nature as self-centered, materialistic, possessive. The psychology of emerging consciousness. Now there is third view. The advice he has given third advice to follow fear. It is better to be feared rather than loved because the statecraft is management of power, art of using force. He has given the powers two types. There is a hot power and soft power. India belongs to the soft power, it's a power of attraction. US belongs to hot power of coercion. Prince must know proper use of these two types of powers. Maintain law and order and discipline people. Prince has to maintain law and order and discipline the people. It recommends the policy of love gradually not reliable on man for ungrateful and fickle minded. He actually has accepted that okay, it should be remain the policy of love, but not reliable on man for ungrateful fickle minded. Man can change it in within time fraction of time period. You should not be love like a Buddha. Force is more reliable because not to be but the force should not be used fast. The user through proxies and subsidiaries. What is the Russia and USCS stand in Afghanistan? They are using the force, the proxies, proxy war and West. The West Asian country, the proxy war between the Russia and USC. They directly won't fight. They use the proxies and subsidiaries completely in a single go. But if you are going to force, destroy the king in a single go. Never let a man live for revenge. If we compare the situation in World War II of the USA, the Hiroshima Nagasaki on Japan, it destroyed completely. There is no revenge against them. They can't able to revenge also. This is the situation of Japan. A person has to be a prince. If he uses force, he has to be destroyed completely in single go. Revenge very powerful feeling at the cost of self-interest and the personal. India has to take against revenge. Sorry, India has to take revenge against China. 1962 war period, they didn't crash at us completely. We have the feeling. Okay, even the Indian, Pakistan, and Kashmir, so we have the feeling of revenge. Machiavelli is a poet that about smart power Gandhi allowed in 1942. Machiavelli even talks about smart power. The Gandhi's allowed in 1942. There is another advice on qualities. What qualities should be a prince should have? The prince should be a cold-blooded man and controls over temper and act with reason. He should be cold-blooded man, control over temper and act with reason. He should be cleverer than a fox and courageous than a lion. This is the when we see the movie, the Pravas movie. There is a dialogue that he is cleverer than a fox and courageous than braver than a lion. Okay, the poisonous than a snake. This type of words has to be used. The fox reason because clever to understand the conspiracies and traps, and the courage to defend himself through from the wolves. Times of Plato and Aristotle, the ruler class and the orange reason and courage for ruling class. According to the Plato's and Aristotle, the reason and courage should belongs to the ruling class. The Machiavelli is more accepted. When we compare to the Kautilya's ancient India, there are similar tasks. There is interstate relations, jungle, strength of lion prevails. In the jungle, the strength of the lion prevails. Every state requires institutions of intelligence and law. In Machiavellian, we are comparing now the concept of ethics, religion, and politics. When we compare the ethics, religion, and politics, in politics, ends justifies means. If the ends are good, it means the means employed were also good. Ends justify the means. The ends are good, it means that the means employed were also good. The Machiavellian greatest contribution about ends and means. He says political actions are autonomous from religion and ethics. There are autonomous from religion and ethics. Political actions are. Sometimes action needed might put the prince in religious and ethical dilemma. Some actions put the religious and ethical dilemma on the prince. And rightly and timely action is required. When the situation in Operation Pole, Operation Black Panther, I think is there. Yeah. When Indira Gandhi has entered, it has to give permission to enter into the Amritsar to be king out the Pindra Valley. There is a religious dilemma whether to send the military force into the religious place or not. The same thing he's saying the what is the Machiavelli is saying. There will be a problem. We have to time take right action timely. Nothing is superior than the national interest. He has given the sovereignty. Nothing is superior than that. There is a concept of dual morality. In the dual morality of prince, different from the ordinary man. We have discussed it earlier that the morality of the prince is different from the individual person because for an ordinary person, he is sacrificing himself for his principle, but a prince cannot sacrifice himself for the nation interest for his principles. There are political action evaluated by outcomes and whether not the ethics or religious. National interest paramount. All actions in national interest is right. If nation interest is sacrificed in the name of the ethics, then the prince cannot be saved. We cannot compromise the national interest in the name of ethics. The prevailing situation of corona, we can say that our national interest has compromised to increase the medical diplomacy. This look like we compromised on national interest. That means we first, instead of giving priority to only our citizens, we have supported the international for the vaccine. It harmed ourselves. The greatest patriot, nothing superior to the nation. Gandhi, purity of means cannot assure right ends by following wrong means. According to the Gandhi is a critic of Machiavelli. What he says, we can't achieve the ends by a wrong means. Politic ethics not is separable. If separated, there is a death trap. According to Dunning, the Machiavelli is one of the most unfortunate figures in the history of Western political philosophy. The paradox that he has been criticized for telling what is reality of the politics. The person in the Western political life the most criticized person in UK because he has told the truth. Understand the significance of morality. Where people are moral officers, he can recommend republic. Where the persons are people are ethical, there is no need there we can follow the republic. But if the persons are fickle minded and they are immoral, it should be prince has to be taken charge with iron hand. There are other advices given by the Machiavellian. Whether Machiavelli was anti-religious or religious, Machiavelli is even not an anti-religious or irreligious because he separated the church. His against the church, the reason corrupted at the time. Why Machiavelli is against religion, church boy? At the time of the Machiavellian, the situations that the church commands are corrupted. They becomes obstacle to the unification of Italy. The against church interference in politics, the interfering in politics, the absolute unification of Italy. Understood the importance of religion. Disciplinary force. Also says prince should not appear either of the above in public despite his personal views. Whatever this person is, he should not be appear above in public. Appear like a really irreligious. Because religion can be used for the state, but if religion should not be obstacle to the path of it, national interest. Even in India also, we are using the religion, but it should not be obstacle to the national interest. The father of European, this is the reason why he called the father of European secularism. He has given a utilitarian approach which appears religious, using in national interest. Religion has to be used in national interest. Another suggestion of Machiavellian is emphasize that if a situation arises, one should prefer calm over the nobles because nobles are aspire to be princes. and nobles are smaller in number. The common man is much larger in number. They never ask for speaking. The nobles are regarded as a parasite class. This is the reason. When there is a conflict, you support the colony. The same thing will happens in our society. The corporates and ordinary people. In the corporate, sometimes government has to suspend the orders of corporate projects to get the vote bank of ordinary people. Machiavelli was the first person to recommend the army of nations. He was the first person in the army of nations. Support the explanation foreign policy because even in India, during the British Empire, Britishers followed that. What the Britishers followed? Britishers said that there are privileges that exist even during the British period because they know that it is much hard to govern. Instead of governing directly, they kept their little governors as a princess. Okay. For this, he says that the culture where there is the same culture, even the Nepotian policy also, where there is the same culture, we can rule it. And the policy of the Alauddin Khilji also same. The policy of Akbar, okay, but the policy of Aurangzeb has changed. They says that the expansionist policy in this, where there is the same culture, we can start a regime. But where there is a different culture, the prince cannot rule it. It's better to be given kept in the hands of the lieutenants. Fortune, another is fortune. It will be bad luck. Even how the prince is getting, and there are some of the natural disasters. Is tested times. Machiavelli was a realist to acknowledge the role of fortune. It's a fate. Luck factor beyond human control. It's not in our control. Even with all the quality of the prince, it can be a fate. He can face a fate. The bad times like torrential rains and roaring rivers devastate the prince completely. Now, if we compare it in India, right now the situation prevailing that Modi ji is regarded as the one of the lead hot leader, the tallest leaders. But unfortunately, the coronavirus has stalled the disaster, the prince, devastating the prince, and making him and now the Modi is facing the failure. We can compare this. The vice prince make prior arrangement to minimize the damage and backwards to control the flood. Now, even if now there is a rainfall. We can call it as there is a tufan, or there is a tufan, Dakotia tufan, something which is some Dakotia tufan on the lines of the western coast. Now it's devastating to control to bring the wisely brings things to minimize the losses. It acts with the courage. Machiavelli is an optimist. Where he giving views on discourses. Wherever possible, there should be a republic. Wherever necessary, there should be monarchy ruling with iron hand first. But never aristocracy. We should not keep the into the feudal lords or parasites. Struggle for the unification of Italy. Aristocracy should not be happening. It may be monarchy or republic. Now we are assessing the Plato as a thinker. Politics is not ethics. Machiavelli belonged to child of his times. He lost key in the true for every thinker, but most appropriate for Machiavelli. All major developments of the first time reflected in the works of the Machiavelli reflect the spirit of his time. The major developments during his Machiavellian time, Renaissance, there is spirit of inquiry and humanism. The nature, human nature kept in center of Machiavelli's theory, human nature is the center. The Reformation, he separated the church and the state reforms. He, due to this, is regarded the father of European secularism. There is a breakdown here, feudalism. He prefers common man over the nobles, breakdown of feudalism. There is a rise of nation state. He has given the nationalism over religion, patriotism over religion rather than an army of nations. He has given nationalism over religion. Rise of capitalism. Machiavelli describes human nature as self-centered, possessiveness, materialistic. By these, we can note that the cycles of bourgeois class, which belongs to the rise of capitalism. Now, the exploration, he has given the foreign policy, expanded foreign policy. Renaissance, he has given human nature first reforms, separated the religion and politics, and the feudal, he abolished it. Against, he break down the feudal and the presence. So, prince has to be supported these common people instead of nobles. There is rise of nation states because of the promotion of patriotism rather than religion. Now rise of capitalism because of egos that argues the men is self-centered, materialistic, and possessive. By this we can rise of capitalism. He given this expands foreign policy with age of exploration. That's correct to say. Machiavelli is narrow dated and narrowly located. According to Sabine, who is a critic of the Machiavellian. Sabine, according to Sabine, Machiavellian is narrowly dated and narrowly present. The pessimistic views with respect to the politics belongs to his times. He had belonged to some other time, the space he may not be so pessimistic. Sabine, not entirely wrong, but also true. Machiavelli has translational significance, there is universal significance. Now that we are following international relations, even the Machiavellian's significance is there. The freedom of realism and the freedom of realism, European secularism. He has given the origin of behavioralism. The Kautilya may be different times, but there are similarities between the Kautilya's and the Machiavellian views. If the Machiavellian just said that, but while comparing to the Kautilya's prince, Machiavellian prince is much lesser harm while comparing to the Kautilya's prince. Because Kautilya says that the prince has to initiate the spies on the nobles itself by the time tested. Nehru described time called Kautilya as Indian Machiavellian. Nehru's is the discovery of India or Kautilya as Indian Machiavelli. To some what extent it is appropriate to call Machiavelli as the first modern thinker. Machiavellian, the first modern thinker, is a matter of debate because first, but he has first to give the idea of a nation state and the secularism. He did not give the idea of sovereignty. The sovereignty Barnegi. The Hope's most important idea is modern political philosophy. The complete theory of sovereignty is given by Hobbes. Man should not expand nation state comprehensive. Machiavellian Machiavellian's conspiracy than Hobbes with current narrative. It belongs to non-medieval times. Now, there is a new route given by this Machiavellian, that is nation state secularism and not ethics separated. Machiavellian's application of empirical methods is to begin with one of the oldest discipline, origin of the ancient Greece. It is also dynamic, keeps changing with it changes with times. According to Plato, father of political philosophy, there is no distinction between ethics and politics. When it comes to Aristotle, father of political science, even the some realism, but there is no distinction between the ethics and politics. When in medieval times, the political science is under religion. In medieval age, the father of political realism, empirical method. what is rather than what ought to. Human nature and history, empirical mathematics, human nature and history. The political is neither religious nor ethics. The autonomous discipline is a it has a spirit of political inquiry. It depends on Machiavelli and behavioral politics. Now the prince is the best typical state of it tells the enterprise persons how to be in power or stay in power. Is when his child of his times is the end of the feudalism. This is not to antagonize anyone, but his situation demands prince must choose over king, over choose common man or people over the nobles. The way he views and discusses it should be never aristocracy. So that's the plans. We are ending right now. Yeah, what we have seen right now, the suggestions we have seen. What are the suggestions? Till now, Machiavellian considered political realism, father of and the father of European secularism, and the child of Renaissance. The political thought, the adversarial nature of profession, how the profession should be, the nature of human nature, how human nature behaviors, and the fear, how the people should be feared towards the prince rather than the qualities human nature has given, qualities has given, fear has given, human nature quality, fear has given, and one thing I think the first one is the major profession. It's a profession has given. Now the religious ethics and preference between religious politics is given this. And the other suggestions such as Machiavellian anti-religious are religious. A Machiavellian situation arises. When the situation arises, they have to support the common man. When the first person he is the first person to give the army of nations. He supported the expansion of foreign policy. The fortunate has been the confused and research has given assessment of the thinker, child of his time, how he behaved, and the narrowly how we look at the science. Modern thinker, these are the words which were given by the Machiavelli. We are ending right now.